It was a 45-minute drive to Jonah's concert, and Blakey replayed Lusk's visit in his head the entire time. It only served to agitate him, and by the time he found parking and was walking towards the outdoor amphitheatre, he felt a little sick. The park was filled with families, and the concert was already in progress. He texted Susan to find her. "I'm towards the front," she responded. They exchanged smiles but didn't speak, since the music had already started. Blakey's gaze moved from Jonah to the back, where the bulk of a tuba blocked its owner from view. Once the horn shifted, a walrus was revealed, playing it. The podgy old bull with two uneven, broken tusks oozed out the edges of his school colours band uniform. His skin was like a vintage, beaten leather sofa, reclaimed and restretched over curdled masses of blubber. His whiskers, all disparate lengths, bristled as he turned his sheet music and fingered brass keys with his flippers. There was no tuba in the next passage, and the walrus's beady, irritated eyes looked out at Blakey from beneath a thick brow of bountiful scars. It then smiled at Blakey as it cleaned out the tuba's spit valve. An unusually thick glob of phlegmy spit belched onto the floor and remained tethered to the instrument as it resumed playing. Blakey looked around to see if anyone else saw the walrus. No one did. It was there for him alone, so he took a deep breath to counter his emerging suffocation. A voice chimed in, "That roly-poly shade is here to stop you from believing, stop you from sharing Vincent, and from getting back on the rails to reality. They want me to believe in madness. He isn't real." The band played one more piece, during which Blakey felt that familiar, queasy panic as he watched the walrus. Susan snapped pictures and then checked them with a proud smile. When the band finished, the crowd stood and applauded. There were 2 more rounds of applause, first for the musicians and then for their teacher. The crowd then dispersed, and in the din of conversation, Blakey thought he could finally tell Susan about Vincent and Lusk. However, a more concerning question popped into his head as the walrus, still seated on stage, returned Blakey's gaze with a dangerous look. "Do you ever feel like you're not really alive?" Blakey asked rather blankly. Susan looked at him confused. "I guess. Sure, once or twice. Fleeting." The occasional passing family greeted Susan, distracting her. "And how do you know you're alive?" Blakey asked further. She gave him a suspicious look. "How do I know I'm alive? What are you talking about, Arthur?" Blakey stared at her, desperately wanting her full attention as she waved and watched passing families. He did not want the bizarreness of his questions to linger. She finally indulged after another greeting to a passing mother and daughter. "I guess 'cause I feel alive. I feel things. I feel like I'm living." He considered her reply and further questioned, "How can you be sure you didn't die somewhere along the way, like when you were 20 or 30? What if you died at birth and this is all some afterlife dream?" Blakey's rational tone vanished, and it sounded worse with all the other conversations happening around them. Susan went from being distracted to feeling almost annoyed as she nodded in approval to Jonah, who was with friends at a food truck. She then refocused on Blakey. "Arthur, what are you getting at?" He suddenly felt very silly, but answered her with a defeated tone. "I think I was killed when Alice was taken, or maybe I killed myself after." This was the easiest thing for Blakey to imagine, because he had come close several times. Being dead lurked in his mind as the go-to excuse for any lack of cohesion or grievance. "I don't feel real. This isn't real. Maybe I was a sucky father and this is my hell. Hell for dads who fail to save their children." In the long pause that followed, Blakey's crumbling expression finally raised concern with Susan. "You aren't a bad father. This isn't hell. It's just DC." The forced attempt at humor didn't register with him. Blakey's eyes teared up without an expression change. "I can't seem to figure how to..." He struggled to find the words and his thoughts knotted up. Susan sensed an imminent collapse and put a hand on his shoulder to steady him. "What do you think it means, seeing Alice everywhere?" Blakey lobbed out. Susan's concern turned to fear. "You see Alice?" His voice wavered. "Do you think that means that she is—" Blakey forced the last word out. "Dead?" Blakey reached in his pocket for the photo of Vincent, the killer, the pervert, and the thief, as evidence. Before he could show her, Susan emphatically ruled, "Alice is not dead." "She isn't." Blakey looked at her with childishly hopeful eyes, wishing for her to have the wisdom he did not have. "Because—" Susan searched. "She can't be. They will find her. The others, the police, the FBI will find them. It's just too many to be what you think." Blakey's expression fell at what amounted to blind faith. He knew then she would not understand. "No one will," the voice assured him. Blakey let go of the photo in his pocket. Jonah pinged Susan's phone, asking for cash. "Hold on." Susan approved the request and returned to Blakey, who now looked pained and distant, staring off into the empty seat in the back row of the orchestra. But it wasn't really empty. To Blakey, the walrus was still there, staring back at him. Alice was with the beast, testing out the tuba, laughing in between blowing, booming honks through the mouthpiece. "Art, you need some sleep. I think you're running yourself ragged. You look like you haven't slept in a week. I can't imagine. If I lost Jonah, I don't know what I would do." Susan looked to her son again, who was sharing a mountain of chili fries with his friends. Then she consoled, "Despite what your wife says, it's not your fault. And seeing Alice is just worry and obsession, understandable obsession." He rebutted hopelessly, "There's nothing before her. There is meeting her mother, and then Alice, nothing else. I can remember nothing else." "I know, Arthur, it seems like that for me sometimes. What was life before Jonah? Hard to remember. And now that Alice is gone?" He finished her thought. She tried to sidestep the mistake. "You said you wanted to show me something." The voice prodded. "Go ahead, show her. Prove it was all some lonely sicko. Only a matter of time before the remains are recovered. In the crawl space of some rural Gothic hell house, a mass grave of tiny child bones." Blakey reached back into his pocket and touched the photo. He must have begun to hyperventilate because Susan's hand returned to his shoulder. "Hey, take a breath," she instructed. Blakey looked at the walrus and Alice. She was now in his lap, and the walrus was smiling proudly. She urged, "Really, Arthur, take a breath." Blakey finally registered the pleading and indulged her. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. In the moment of darkness, he could only see Alice sailing, gliding effortlessly out her bedroom window and then down the street into the void. He had replayed this haunting image in his mind countless times since her abduction. Only now he rewrote the vision. She was not afraid. She stared ahead with a dutiful expression, gently resting her head against her captor's fuzzy bulk. This was so much worse. Blakey guffawed loudly and everyone looked. "Better?" she asked. Blakey nodded, but it was so far from better. "Now, what did you want to show me?" He had to smile, and the smile was big like a crack in a damn wall. "Nothing. I've got nothing." She looked at him intently, finally noticing his pallor. "You don't look good, Arthur. How's your back? Let me look." She moved to examine him, and he shirked away. "It's okay, I'm fine." He put on an assuring smile. "Really, I'm fine." It took more than a few assurances from Blakey for Susan to let him leave. As he walked to his car, passing by the happy families, he regretted having placated her. He did not get what he needed. He knew doubts of Lusk and Vincent would fester and eat at him. Blakey got in his car, and when his back met the seat, his vision blurred. Nausea swelled, and he vomited into the only available receptacle, a large coffee cup from the center console. It filled, and the smell of coffee and mostly bile caused a chain reaction. He opened the door and finished vomiting on the grass. Once his stomach was empty and he caught his breath, he looked up, right into the faces of a gawking family. Spittle dripped from his slack, ashen face. He sheepishly offered an apology and wiped his mouth. Before another round gathered, he got back in the truck, closed the door and braced on the steering wheel. The voice then barraged him over swells of blood pressure. You've been poisoned. Their evil is in your system. It will take over. You'll be one of them. You'll be roaming the night stealing children. You won't even know why. Blakey muttered in the solitude of his truck. That's impossible. What part, the monsters or you turning into one? The voice had a point. Stop! I need a moment, Blakey declared. The voice faded with a final jab. Take all the time you don't have. We will all wait.